what I do is, with your permission, I will record it and share it with these dealing with this particular issue that is amongst us. And so without further ado, Kathy, you can elaborate a little bit on it, but I'm going to switch my view to speaker view so that you can be full screen, and then
get a good look.
yeah, we can have a good look at you. Okay, here goes.
All right. Well, thank you, first of all, for inviting me to speak today. When Daryl called the other day, I hadn't gotten the original email, so I only had about 2 days to put this together, but it really wasn't putting it together because I've done this for a number of people, and I've done it for many years, talking about how we cope and how we deal and how we are faced with stressors and change and that kind of thing. And so Daryl said, well, you know, you can talk about the personality styles and how some people react better than others. And the first thing I said to Daryl is, we all react to this crisis. We are all feeling the impact of it, no matter what our circumstances are, what our personalities are, that we all have the stress. So I kind of went back to some of the work that I did with stress management, and I pulled out an old definition that I had put together many years ago, and it's actually from the engineering component, and they define stress, some of you may recognize this, as any external force that produces a strain on a structure. And the degree of stress is dependent upon the amount of strain and the properties of the structure. And when you convert that, not from a building or, you know, a structure, but that structure being the human being and the human structure, we were hit like hitting a brick wall with this whole crisis and the quarantine and things like that. Unexpected, unplanned, unanticipated change. And we all have difficulty with that no matter who we are. But when you think about that definition of stress, any external force, well, this certainly was a big external force. And it produced quite a strain on our structure as human beings. And the degree of the stress that we feel because of this is dependent upon our own qualities, our own abilities, our own properties, and our own stamina, if you will, to face stress and change. So I'm going to talk about change a little bit later too, and how we cope and deal with that differently. But I think it's important that we just have a few overall points. And one of the overall points is when I went back and I looked at some of the causes of stress in general, not just this, but in general, you look back, lack of goals and direction. And that's one of the problems that we face psychologically with this whole thing, is that suddenly our directions changed. Suddenly our goals changed. We may have had all these wonderful plans that we as business people put into place, our short-term planning, our long-term strategic planning, and all of a sudden that has to, you know, come to a halt and change. Certainly the business owners in the community are facing that, where all of their plans are really gone right now. We don't know when we can anticipate getting back to, quote, normal, if we'll ever get back to what we knew as normal. So when you look at that, isolation is another one of these causes. And what's happening to many people, these Zoom meetings have been invaluable because we don't have to face the isolation, but many people are really facing that. Joe and I are going to celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary this year. And I said, if this isn't over soon, we may not reach 40 together, because here we are isolated together. And it is putting a strain. As good as our relationship is, it's going to put a strain on the people that are closest to you that you're isolated with, but it's also that isolation from everything that we've all been involved. That's why you're members of this kind of a group. It's that involvement with other people that we're missing. And then another avoidance of uncomfortable feelings. Many of us don't want to admit that this is getting to us. And the longer it goes on, the more it will get to us. And certainly our lifestyle changes that have changed dramatically, which I talked to. Another thing that I went back to and looked at was resilience. One of the components that we have, and it's going to help us to overcome all of this, is our ability to be resilient. So what is resilience? I have a definition I've used for a number of years. It's the ability to spring back from whatever pitfalls life has to offer. So we have to look forward to how we're going to spring back, whether that be in our life, in our business, in our relationships. But going back to that engineering definition, resilience is the ability to absorb or avoid damage without suffering complete failure. A more comprehensive definition then is that the ability to respond, absorb, and adapt to and recover in a disruptive event. I think there's never been a better definition of what we're going through now. So it really is dependent on how well we're able to absorb, adapt, and recover from this whole thing. Another general point, and I want to tell a little story here, and that is about, have anybody ever heard of Viktor Frankl? If you have, raise your hand. Viktor Frankl may not ring a bell with you, but Viktor Frankl wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl wrote this book after World War II. He was a prisoner in the Holocaust in one of the death camps. And Viktor Frankl was also a physician. Now, we think that, oh, this is awful, what we're facing right now. Some people can't deal with it. It's just horrible. But think of what those people put into the death camps in World War II, in Poland and Germany and that. What did they face? I mean, that was total degradation. Their whole life was changed. And then they were starved, they were freezing, worked to death. But Viktor Frankl was a physician, so he was supposed to be taking care of all of these other prisoners. He had nothing to be able to do. And we look today and, you know, we're all very concerned, make sure we have enough equipment and ventilators and masks and gloves. And he was a physician in a death camp with nothing. And what could he do to help others? But he began to look, and I recommend his book, if you can find it, Man's Search for Meaning. But he started to look around and he said, there are survivors and there are those who give up. And what's the difference? What makes someone determined that they're going to survive no matter what happens, and someone else just say, I can't take it anymore? We're not at that point, hopefully, but there may be people out there that are right now. What's going to make the difference? Whether they're going to be a survivor or they're going to be just give in to this whole thing. I can't tolerate, I can't live with this. And that's why one of our concerns right now is the suicide rate, the domestic violence rate, and all this kind of stuff that could happen as a result of this isolation. But Viktor Frankl has a very famous quote, and I think it's something that, you know, I probably have lived by and shared with a number of other people. He said, everything can be taken from a man but one thing. Obviously, man being generic man. One thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's own attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Because no matter what is taken away from us, we still have our own attitude and how we're going to choose to handle this situation. That's a good philosophy for life in general, but it certainly can be applicable here with what we're dealing with. So those are just some general points. Daryl asked me to talk about different personality styles, and I'm sure, again, raise your hand if you've ever taken a personality test of some kind. Myers-Briggs, DISC, DISC, psychogeometrics, there's dozens of personality tests out there. So you probably have some kind of idea of what kind of personality you have yourself. And you may have already decided what kind of personality your spouse or significant other or close family member has too, because we can always figure out what somebody else is, sometimes better than we can figure out who we are ourselves. But in those, a lot of those personality tests go back to Carl Jung and his theories on personality. And he's the one who really started this whole thing, and the Myers-Briggs and the DISC, they all base it on that. But let's just look at some of these personalities. Introvert versus extrovert. Now, how many of you think that an extrovert can handle this isolation situation today better than an introvert can? Anybody? A couple of you? Daryl has a no. No. Karen has a no. Yeah, I would think that the introverted person who is kind of self-contained and does things on their own and likes to be by themselves sometimes should be able to handle this better. And an extrovert who is so used to having many people and interacting and things like that, not true, okay? Both personalities will have trouble coping under these circumstances. So that's one classic example where you can really see how it should be obvious, but it's not, because the introvert is used to having control, having an important part in their own life, and they've lost some of that control now. Again, sensing versus intuiting. The person's preference for the concrete, the sensor, the deal with the facts, give me the details, is having a lot of trouble right now. Why? Because we don't have the facts. We don't have the details. We talked before about opening up versus not opening up. Yes, no. We just don't know. We don't know where it's going. We don't know where our businesses are going. We don't know where our economy is going. So we don't have all of those facts that the sensor needs to make decisions. As opposed to the intuitive, the imagination, creative. How can I be creative when I'm isolated? You know, they're feeling the stresses from that type of a feeling. The feeling versus the thinker. Again, preference for making decisions based on personal values and feelings. And the feeler typically needs to share feelings. So we have to reach out and find opportunities of how we can share our feelings. The thinker needs that objective logic again, kind of like the sensor. And then the judging versus the perceiving. Judging people need organization. They need an organized life. They need plans. They need goals, very specific. They need to know what their calendar looks like tomorrow and the rest of the week and the rest of the month and the rest of the year, that type of thing, because they're the detail person versus the perceiver. How do I, you know, let's just let it happen and see what happens. But each person in their own personality has more difficulty dealing with those things. I don't know if any of you had the opportunity to see on Facebook just the other night, someone had posted, if you're familiar with the DISC, D-I-S-C, personality test and things like that. But DISC stands for, you know, different personalities. And on it was, how does the DISC personality apply to this COVID situation? And so let me just share a little bit about what the DISC is a bit. And the D is the dominant, driven, demanding, determined, decisive, doer, the delegator, usually the leader, if you will, or whatever that is. And the DISC in the COVID situation, they're results oriented, they're firm, they're forceful, they're strong-willed. So they may be angry. They may stay home, wear a mask, wash their hands, has toilet paper, demands that you do the same, and is ready to shame you if you don't. There's somebody on TV that had their neighbors arrested because they were out and not doing these social distancing. You know, that type of thing. That's the D, the dominant, because they want to have control of the situation. The I is the inspirational, influencing, inducing, impressive, interactive, interested in people. This is the person who's outgoing, enthusiastic, optimistic, and lively. This is the person in this situation, not worried at all, goes out for walks, drives into town, goes for groceries, washes hands, but not for 20 seconds, and does not wear a mask, okay? That may be related individually, but that person probably has a spouse who is after him all the time. Put that mask on if you're in a high-risk group. I won't say who that is. Okay.
Amen.
The S is supportive, submissive, stable, steady, sentimental, and shy sometimes. Kind of relates to the same Jungian personality on the other side. But this person is even-tempered, accommodating, patient, tactful. So what is this person going to do? Be very cooperative. This person is going to be neutral, doesn't talk about it much, but mostly stays in, willing to go along with whatever they're told to do, whatever anyone else is saying, and is not that worried because they know that they're going to be good, if you will, okay? And then you have the C. The C is cautious, competent, calculating, concerned, careful, and contemplative. And that person is analytical, reserved, systematical, and precise. Stays home, wears a mask, washes hands, counts to 20, sanitizes everything, lots of toilet paper, and knows all the virus statistics, okay? Checks every day what the statistics are. If you see yourself in any of those, congratulations, but you're no different than anyone else because you're still facing some of these stressors. So what are we going to do about some of these things? You know, if you've taken the Myers-Briggs, you know exactly which 4 letters you are, ISTP and whatever they are. Very complicated, but you kind of know who you are and you know who the people around you are. There's people out there that, you know, we don't know that well, but they may be suffering because of the way they react to situations. Remember what Frankl said, you are in control of your attitude. You're in control of your behavior and how you react to it. So what we have to do is to focus and use the control that we have to make our choices. Acknowledge that even in the circumstances, we still have control of some things. And so take control of what you can. Avoid your energy depletion. Focus on what options you do have right now. Not what you can't do, but what can I do? How many of you had never really been involved in Zoom video conferencing before this whole thing? Raise your hand, okay? Now we're all into it. We're comfortable with it. We know exactly what to do, and we've been on many calls. We set up a meeting last night for a bunch of people throughout the southeastern area, and I can't tell you the number of people said, oh, I got a conflict, got another meeting then, got another meeting. I can't change it to Wednesday, got a meeting. Everybody's on these conference meetings all the time now. So we can do some things. What are our options? Set our goals. Yes, our goals have changed. So we've got to reset some of those goals. They may be different than what we've already chosen. Accept the givens. There are certain things we just have to cope with and deal with. Like it or not, we have to accept it. Focus on a better world. When we come out of this, are we going to be better people for the experience? That's going to be important to so many people because our world is going to change. The handshake that has been a tradition for centuries may very well change. And as a nurse, I can tell you, we probably should change it. And I know in the South, we do a lot of hugs. Now, I'm originally from the North, here 20 years. Took me a long time from coming from New York to feel comfortable with all the hugs. Now I'm comfortable, guess what? Not gonna be anymore, okay? So things are gonna change, accept those things. Focus on the better world. Maintain your optimism and share that with other people. Don't be down, don't be, you know, we're all gonna have bad days and we're gonna feel down, but don't pass the negative along to other people. Try to be optimistic and always do what you can do. See yourself as being successful, but that success may be measured in a different way. Leslie talked about working with Matthew's ministry. Karen talked about, you know, the different organizations that you're helping. That's your measure of success these days. Do something and do it for other people. We haven't been hit very badly with COVID here in Brunswick County. I am on the Health and Human Services Advisory. We're having a meeting on Monday. I'm sure I'll get the down and dirty and all the details. But if you follow any of the websites, you know we've had, what, 36, 37 cases in Brunswick County. I didn't check this morning. That's not that bad considering. Our hospitals are not overwhelmed considering, but our food banks are overwhelmed. Our people unemployed, no income, looking to how they're going to keep, you know, pay their mortgage. That's overwhelming right now. So that's where we have to refocus some attention. I mean, I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for 55 years, and I'm certainly empathetic coming out of New York. I know what the city hospitals are going through up there, but that's not what's happening here in Brunswick County. Our hospitals are not overwhelmed, and I'm sure that I'm a nurse who's unemployed right now because my nursing job, which I still do on a consulting basis, is gone. So I don't need help because I'm a nurse, but the people out there that have lost their jobs need help. So that's another way that we can feel successful by getting involved with that. Reward yourself sometimes, and that's an important piece that we need to look at as well. In stress management, in taking care of yourself, there's self-care. That's not selfishness, that's self-care. One of the theories that I use when I talk about stress management is if you are not good to yourself, You cannot be good to everyone else. And I use the airplane model. When you get on an airplane, which none of us are doing these days, but when you can, we're all so overwhelmed and we're not paying attention to the instructions. But you all know it, that when they get up and give you the instructions for the flight, they'll tell you, in the event that the oxygen, drops down, put your mask on yourself first, and then you can help other people. Use that as a motto for your life. If I don't take care of myself, I can't help other people. So a lot of good self-care. What does that mean? Eating right, sleeping right, getting the exercise that you need, remaining healthy, because that's going to, even if you come in contact with COVID, if you are healthy, it'll help you fight it off, but it'll also help a lot of other people. And I teased before about getting dressed up, but there is a tendency for some people, they just want to kind of slouch off. If it wasn't for Zoom meetings, I don't know how often I'd put lipstick on anymore. But, the reality is, get up, get dressed, get groomed, look nice, put your earrings on, put your, lipstick on, gentlemen. No, but, comb your hair. I know we're all getting long hair these days because we can't go to the grooming and get our hair cut. But, keep yourself feeling good, because looking good will make you feel good too. And so it does change your attitude for a day sometimes if you do that self-care. And it's not being selfish, again, to take care of yourself. Some of the other things, focus on the here and now. I don't know what's going to happen this summer. I'm disappointed that the 4th of July parade is canceled. I was all set. We were going to have a very large float this year to celebrate 100 years of women's suffrage. And we're doing a women suffragette, float, and recognizing that. Got the approval from the chamber, and now it's gone. We'll do it next year. We can celebrate 101 years. We'll just have to look for, some good things to happen in the future. Confide in other people if you need to. Now, we're all leaders. We're supposed to be strong. We're, business owners and leaders in the community and that kind of thing. But sometimes we need to confide in others too. So look to that. Keep everything in perspective. And don't forget your spirituality, okay? That's going to be an important piece for many people. There is a higher being, and many people with their spiritual beliefs may feel very angry right now. How could God let this happen? We're not in a position to be judging God. We'll be thanking God for all the good things that is happening, and that maybe we're getting control and preventing other people from losing their life because of what's happened, all right? Enjoy your family and friends. Pamper yourself, maybe. Share your feelings, we talked about. Cultivate a sense of humor. Let's not lose our sense of humor. Let's keep ourselves happy. Read a funny book if you need to. Watch a silly movie on TV. Don't just watch the news 24/7 to find out what's going on. Diversion, fun, happiness. Call a friend that always makes you laugh and just chat. Those are the things that are going to keep you going in this. And call somebody that you think may need that call and cheer them up as well. 5 ways to build resiliency, which I talked about in the beginning. Pump up your positivity. Be aware of your own self-talk. Am I talking negative, or am I trying to keep my talk positive? Keep that in mind. Live to learn. Take the opportunity to do some learning in your own professional field, maybe outside. I've been following the Southport Historical Society. They've had some outstanding programs, and for an hour at a time to get on them. I think, Erlene, haven't you been on them? I've seen your face on some of those. I think she has. But, those are learning opportunities. They're right there. Certainly the, internet has saved us in that, because there's so many opportunities. Joe and I are realtors. I think you know that. And we took the opportunity to do our continuing education online on Sunday for 4 hours. And so you got to keep up with everything that's going on. Open your heart. This is a time when a lot of people need us to open our heart. Take care of yourself, which I mentioned, and hang on to your humor. And don't forget physiological stress. We think of stress, a lot of psychological. However, the stress that we're facing, the change that we're facing, can hit us physically. This is another piece that we don't hear a lot about, but heart attacks, strokes, ulcers, a lot of physical, any GI problems are related to what we're dealing with right now. You're going to see an increase of that. There may be a decrease in our car accidents on the road because fewer people are driving. But I think as we look back and see all the statistics, we're going to see an increase in physical health issues in the population overall. So please take care of that. Be careful of it. If you smoke, stop smoking. It's not going to be good for you. Under these circumstances, people tend to smoke more even. Cut it out. It's going to be bad for you. This is a respiratory illness. If you are faced and exposed, your lungs are going to be hit badly. Smoking is the worst thing you can do right now. And I'll preach that because I used to smoke 3 packs a day. So I can say it from experience. I haven't had a cigarette in almost 40 years, thank goodness. But I was a heavy smoker. But that has to stop right now. You are endangering your life. Same thing with alcohol and drugs. This is a time when people feel depressed, anxious, have those anxiety things. That's not the way to go. I know they said liquor stores are essential. I have some doubts about that. But let's not turn to alcohol to, self-medicate, if you will, to make us feel better. Same thing, overeating, undereating. You just got to watch the good things in life and stay away from those bad things. Exercise, absolutely get out. I'm looking at that beautiful scenery in the back, the trees and the leaves and the birds singing. That's what we've got to do. We've got to get out and get some fresh air. I can't believe that we're saying on TV these days that ultraviolet light will help kill the virus. And we're telling people to stay indoors. Come on, get out. Maybe you don't have to be out with people, but get out in the sunshine. They're creating artificial ultraviolet rays to kill the virus when all we have to do in this beautiful weather is to walk out and put our face in the sun. So make sure you get out every day. And know your energy drains and gains. Get the right amount of sleep. Sleep is another problem that people are facing, where they're not able to sleep because of their ability to cope. They're worried. They're out of work. They're trying to feed their kids and pay their mortgage. They're not sleeping. Even if that's not you, even if it hasn't hit you like that or your business isn't gone, you're still going to have trouble and sleep will be disruptive. Set a regular schedule for yourself. Get to bed at a regular time. Get up in the morning at a regular time, as if you had your job to go to or you were going someplace for the day. Take care of yourself. Remember, be good to yourself if you can't be good to anyone else. Last night I went over again one of my favorite books. Many of you may have read this. I hope you have in the past. If you haven't, you need to get it. You can get it right online now. Who Moved My Cheese, okay? Who Moved My Cheese is a story of hem and haw and sniff and scurry. And as I do, my dog's coming up here to sniff. Hem and haw and sniff and scurry are little people who live in cheese stations, okay? And who moved my cheese? It is the best metaphor on how we deal with change. Who are you? Are you sniff, scurry, hem, or haw? I'm not going to tell you anymore because I'm really going to recommend that you take the hour out to read this or look at the video, which you can get on the internet. So go back to that, because how we're facing change is that we were slammed into the wall of change that none of us were ready and prepared to deal with. You can't prepare for something like this. And the best way to go through change is to anticipate change, prepare for it, unfreeze the old, change, and then refreeze the new. And we haven't had any chance to really do that. We're learning to refreeze into a whole new world when we come out of this. So good luck to everybody. You have my contact information if I can be of any help to anyone. It's been kind of fun. I'm glad I had this to do. It gave me another challenge for a couple of days to put this together for you. If you have any questions, I'll be here. Thank you.
Very good.
Excellent, Kathy.
Yes, very good.
Thank you. We'd love to have you join Rotary.
After all this, I lost my job. What can I tell you? real estate has been pretty bad, and my nursing job is gone, so.